week's Shabbos Parshas Nosai that we're going to read this Shabbos, and we've been studying it the whole week, discusses in the beginning about the different Levite families, how many there were, take the census, and also what their responsibilities was in terms of transporting the Mishkan whenever it had to travel. So I want to share with you a story about one of the great sages of our past generation, how he carried his Mishkan. But before we do this, let us all say a chapter of Tehillim. Chapter 100, thanking Hashem for the miracles and praying for the ultimate miracle. Chapter Kuf 100, Mizmor l'soid oril Adonai kol haaretz ivdu es Adonai b'simcha. Boi lefanav birnanu de'u ki Adonai hu Elohim hu asanu v'lo yanachnu ame v'tzoin marisa boi yishor b'soid hachatzroisa b'silo. Hoi dole baruch Shemo ki tov Adonai le'olam chasdo v'yad dor v'dor emunasoi. Let us give some tzedakah with the prayers that we just expressed. And here's the story I want to share. In fact, I heard this Shavuos in Shul, and the story is as following. One of the great luminaries of the previous generation, of the pre- and early Holocaust individuals, was a rabbi, great rabbi, I shouldn't say a fellow, a great rabbi by the name of Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman. He was born in 1874 and passed away in the 1941, early age. Unfortunately, he was actually murdered. He was one of the greatest students of the famous Chafetz Chaim. He eventually opened his own yeshiva in Baranovich, one of the great schools in Lithuania. In fact, his teachings, which is printed in a Sforim, which is called Kovet Shiurim, a compilement of his classes, of his shiurim, of his explanations on the Talmud. There is no yeshiva bacher, there is no student of Talmud worthy of that name, student of Talmud, who is not familiar with his explanations. Now, in addition to being such a great Talmud Chacham, unfortunately, he had to carry the Mishkan. It was also his responsibility and his burden to find the funds to support the students who would come, who studied in his yeshiva. There were hundreds of students. That's, I would say, sad that a great Torah scholar has to be busy with doing fundraising. But that's the reality, and that's what it was. So he once undertook a big journey, traveling to the States, to the Golden Medina, where he came to collect money for his yeshiva. Seems he was not very successful. He was more of a great teacher than a fundraiser. And he was sharing this with someone that, he's been already here for a while, and he's far, far from what he was expecting and what he needs to raise. So this fellow tells him, I just thought of it. There's a fellow here, let's just call him Yankel. He is actually from the same city where you're coming from. He did very well for himself. You got to look him up. What's his name? And he says his name. We were friends since our childhood. I got to go see him. Came to see him. Walks into his big plant. Sewing company. Producing some kind of garments. Elchanan, was machst du? How are you? Let me show you what I have over here. It goes from one place. This part of the factory, this part of the factory. Here they sew, here they press, here they cut, here they style. And impressive. Beautiful. At the end of all this, he tells him, Elchanan, what did you come for? He says, actually, I came My button on my suit is loose. And I see that you have a sewing company. Could you sew that for me? Obviously, with pleasure. Give me a jacket. Immediately calls up one of his tailors, fix it for the rabbi, and he leaves. When this successful businessman came home, he thought, hold on. He came all the way from Europe to get a button sewed? Doesn't make sense. I got to go look him up. And he went back to him and says, tell me, you came just to sew a button all the way from Europe? Doesn't make sense. And he says, you know what, you're right. Does it make sense that a soul came down into this world, traveling a journey all the way from heaven down into this physical finite world just to sew some buttons? He got a message. And he started having a different perspective on